Hey, just a quick video to make sure we understand the multiple channels of nonverbal communication. So we got into this one already, but body communication. And the terms to keep in mind are emblems, which is any kind of body language, using our body in any sort of way to replace verbal communication. All right, so if someone says to me, I have my essay ready, I have my first speech, it's ready to go. Right? You know, I'm like, good job, way to go. An illustrator is when, if you think of an illustration in a children's book, an illustration helps bring the words of the story to life. So if somebody asks me, how do I get to the testing center? I might say, oh, well, you go out this door and just walk on around the hallway and you'll see it when you round the corner. So me going like this, that's just a way of illustrating. And if you think back to earlier in this chapter, my verbal and my nonverbal are complementing each other. So if I say that someone says, oh, which one was Sally? I say, oh, she's the one who was shorter, right? I'm illustrating. Okay, affect displays are facial movements that show emotion. Regulators maintain the speech of another. So if I accidentally interrupt you and I go, oh, my face, my body language, I'm saying, oh, you go ahead and speak. And an adapter, I know it sounds a little creepy, we already said this, but it means satisfying a personal need. Could be if I'm nervous, maybe I scratch my arm, play with my hair, jiggle around my earring. The only thing you'll need to remember about how it is to accommodate, to help appease. So if you remember, say a self adapter could be playing with hair, cracking knuckles. Object adapter is a thing, like maybe I'm going to play with my earring. The guy who takes his baseball cap and puts it up and down a few times, adjusts it several times. All right, so switching forward, we have some examples. Body appearance. We did get into this in class, how tall somebody is, particularly for men. Taller men are perceived as better leaders. Just the way it is. It's our perception of that. Attractiveness. So by attractiveness, it's of course, you know, whatever God gave us in terms of our facial features, but also how we dress, how we keep our hair, what are we wearing, you know. So there's that general idea of attractiveness as well. And of course, positive facial expressions can enhance attractiveness. All right, so facial communication, happiness, surprise, fear. I don't think you needed a speech class to know that facial expressions can say a lot. These are some of my favorite that I show with another PowerPoint, but you know, we can almost guess what this person is thinking. She's in shock or surprise. This one seems to be disgust or disbelief. Okay, so facial management means we are self-monitoring. We are aware of what our face may be communicating to others. This is really the biggest one that I wanted to get into for this class. Feedback, don't worry about that one for the test. Eye contact, notice it talks about the duration, the direction, the quality of the eye movements. It influences our messages and how they are received. The big thing to know is just that eye contact in Western culture is particularly important, but it will vary from culture to culture. Okay, and moving forward, hopefully. Oops, here we go. So I have some examples here of eye contact. Here's one definitely showing attraction of some sort with the eye, not just a smile, but if we look at the eyes, the softness slightly raised. This eye aversion, of course, we also have a dominance kind of thing going on here by standing up taller, but her eyes away, look at how her body language is down. This one I put in here is kind of a famous one. I would typically show when President Trump was first in office, there was this whole montage of his handshakes for a little while. So this is one where the Japanese prime minister actually rolled his eyes after the handshake ended. So handshake itself, another nonverbal symbol, but he always pulls people in. He used to do that, or he'd try to do the big man, you know, power broker, power kind of thing, handshake. So after it was over, Prime Minister got it and I went, Give the big eye roll like, oh lordy. Okay, let's go ahead and go forward. Yeah, eye avoidance. So I gave some examples in that picture back there. Okay, spatial communication. How near, how far? So the only thing I would expect you to remember is intimate is touch to just 18 inches out. So like, I'm trying to get this in here on the camera, 18 inches. That's only 1.5 feet. Think about that. That's not very far away. So as you can imagine, we don't let everybody in there and for very long periods of time. Personal distance. Personal distance tends to be where most business transactions happen. 18 inches to 4 feet, right? Or I'm sorry, social distance is where most business transactions tend to happen. Personal distance, we let people in. Maybe we're having a one-on-one conversation. Social is the business one. If you think about a counter at a department store or think about a conference table and how far apart people are seated across from each other. So that's pretty typical business kind of zone. I have some examples here for proximity. Again, another one related to Angela Merkel and the French Prime Minister. Can't think of his name right now, but they're seeing each other at a global thing. You can tell there's affection, there's fondness. She touches his shoulder. There's eye contact, definitely in proximity. This one kind of a little bit of a dominance. This is one I picked up from a workplace kind of thing. Okay, territory. Primary, secondary, public territory. Really what I would like for you to know of is just the idea of territory is communicated as nonverbal. So how you have your car, right? And I don't mean as an artifact inside your car. Your bedroom, maybe the posters you have hanging, the knickknacks that you have, your awards or trophies that you've received. That says something about you. You communicate with the color you've painted your territory. When you go into a classroom, have you ever noticed you always had the same seat? Once you went into a class, you pretty much had that seat. That was your seat, even though it was like a secondary type of territory. Maybe at the dinner table, did dad, mom, did everybody have their own seat that they always sat in? So territory does speak loudly. Okay, artifactual communication means, we already talked a little bit about color, but what do you wear? Do you have tattoos, piercings? Do you have blue hair? Do you have pink hair? Do you have like gray hair? Right? So do you carry, what kind of backpack do you carry? What purse do you carry? What's your car look like? All of these things send messages whether we want them to or not. I think right now it's really awesome. We are all managing our identity with our masks. Okay? So we are saying something, announcing something, even if it's simplicity. I always make the statement that even if you're the student who wakes up in the morning and you don't really think about what you're wearing, you're more like, I'm picking up the top t-shirt from the clean laundry pile, right? You still are sending messages, even if you're not consciously sending messages. Okay? All right, so we got into that. Space decoration, again, your furnishings, how do you, right, we got into that. Smell. So wearing perfume, scented candles, cologne. Okay, touch. So emotions, can demonstrate emotions through touch, playfulness, also control. Ritual, as a ritual would be like a handshake, holding hands. And then of course there's task related touch. Like if I need to get an immunization or I want a flu shot, they have to touch me to be able to do that. If I go to a massage therapist, they have to be able to touch me. So there's task related touch as well. Avoidance is it's a positive kind of thing, touch avoidance. So high for those who self-disclose little. It means I avoid it. I don't like touch. And then of course there's age and gender have a lot to do with the comfort level of touch. Females are usually fairly comfortable, particularly with each other. But men, sometimes, like one thing I always notice is in a movie theater, not always, but sometimes in a movie theater, remember going to movies, you look out and I see like women will sit closer together generally, and then men sometimes will sit in a movie theater and have a seat in between them. And they're not necessarily like big guys who really need all that space. It's just something about that idea of avoiding touch and close. That's in Western culture. Okay, paralanguage. Paralanguage is accompanying vocal cues with a message. So we've said this a lot. There's a big difference between fine and fine, right? Or fine, right? There's a big difference in those interpretations. The meaning changes based on my paralanguage, volume, pitch, tone, okay? So it's, if you've ever been told, oh, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? They're probably saying, you're coming across a little disrespectfully. So people make judgments based on paralanguage. Do I think you're confident or not? If you're kind of down, looking down, but also mumbling and very low. Up talk at the end is a form of paralanguage. So when we have a statement and we end every statement like it's a question, we sound like we do not know what we're talking about and we lack confidence. That's how it could be portrayed. Silence is huge. So we use silence for so many different reasons. We use silence like in class when I say, I'm going to pause for a minute and give everyone time to write or to think and to write down their answer, because I don't want it to just be the first thought that comes to your head. So I'm giving you time to think. It can also, a moment of silence is honorific, right? If we're remembering somebody or honoring someone, we might have a moment of silence. Where it says use as a weapon or rejection, it can be if you've ever been treated with the silent treatment, someone's angry with you, so they cut you off and they won't look at you and they will not talk to you. Ghosting somebody is an extreme version of silent treatment. Okay, emotional responses. Yeah, and when there's nothing to say, sometimes silence is very comforting. Okay, that is not something I will test on. Temporal is time. So we've gotten into this a little bit in classes. So time could be if we can demonstrate respect, responsibility, reliability by showing up at, if I have a meeting with my boss, I'm going to show up on time. If I have a job interview at 2 o'clock, I'm going to show up 15 minutes early, right? So perhaps though, if there's a house party and the party starts at 10 o'clock at night, maybe I'm not showing up till 11. So part of it, everyone always first starts to say, well, it's because nothing's really happening yet. Well, why is that? Everyone's waiting because they want to seem too eager. So maybe I'm managing my impression by showing up to that party a bit later. Okay. All right, interpersonal, temporal. So yeah, we already got into this. So I'm going to go ahead and pass that. The only thing, don't worry about these terms, mono, poly, or the social clock. I don't want you to worry about those. Just know for right now that time definitely communicates something, and time varies by culture. Culture here within the United States, but also culture elsewhere. A lot of Latin American cultures, being on time is not as important as it is in the United States culture. We put a tremendous emphasis on time. It demonstrates respect for us, responsibility, reliability. Okay, now this will be my next slide. If you would like to have some extra explanation about competence in nonverbal communication, encoding and decoding it, you can watch the next video. Otherwise, you can go by what is in the text and in the PowerPoints.